The main firearm, believed to be the one that caused the most significant damage, is origins unknown. It's never been in previous RCMP control, never been seized by us.
The RCMP provided an update indicating that they have no idea where the Tumbler Ridge shooter got his guns from. We have a story that's emerging from the shooter where a professor became a hero, and at 7:30 Eastern Time, the food professor joins us to speak about the rumor that Canadian beef is cheaper in Vietnam than it is in Canada. My name is Nico Hagen, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. So yeah.
That's true?
Well, I won't go into too much detail right now because I want to address that with Sylvain. But funny enough that I was going to recommend a post. I wanted him to go over a post from Table Salt. And this morning, as I'm going to copy it, his response popped on my feed. So he reposted what Table Salt said, which is that Canadian meat is cheaper in Vietnam than it is in Canada. And he already answered it, but I wanted to ask him. So we will be talking about that. We'll be talking about the food inflation, because I saw reports that indicated that the food inflation for January is 7%. So it's higher than the 6.2% of last year. So yeah, it's it's not looking good for Canadian food and families that already struggle to afford it. So definitely not a good look for Canada. But that's at 7:30. Until then, if we have time, I also want to show a video from Pierre Poilievre. We'll see if we have time. Hopefully we do, because I want to get your impression as someone that's kind of a gym rat like me. I want to get your impression of the video. That being said, let's get started with the video that I found today. And I'm surprised because this was released over the weekend, but unfortunately, it did not get a lot of attention. But you will hear the commissioner of the RCMP giving us an update on the weapons found both at the crime scene and at the school in Tumbler Ridge. I apologize right off the bat that the recording is not very good. It's just audio recording with some images on top of it. But I added massive captions on top of the video so that you guys can make sure to understand what he's saying. But it's basically, you can tell it was recorded outside. There's a bit of noise. And I just found it interesting. I chopped it off. It's about a minute long. But listen to what he had to say about the guns that were recovered.
4 firearms, Jesse. Okay. 2 at the school and 2 at the residence that are associated to, pardon me, both incidents. Okay. Homicides at the residence and homicides at the school. Of the firearms at the school, the main firearm, believed to be the one that caused the most significant damage, is origins unknown. It's never been in previous RCMP control, never been seized by us. We're trying to determine how our suspect got that firearm, and that investigation is continuing. Of the firearms in the residence, the shotgun is an unregistered weapon and has never been previously seized by...
Sorry, you said unregistered?
Non-registered.
Is that legally obtained?
We don't know. So we're continuing to pursue all avenues with respect to all the firearms to determine all of those factors.
So, as I said, I apologize for the quality of the video. That is probably why the video did not go viral, obviously. But it's very important to state that the RCMP, it was the RCMP commissioner that you were hearing being questioned by journalists. And basically, what he's admitting is that the 4 firearms, so there were 2 firearms at the house, which the shooter used to kill his mother and his stepbrother. And then there was 2 other firearms at the school. All of them, they did not know where they came from. Those were not firearms that have ever been seized by the RCMP. Nope, none of them. So that is what the commissioner admitted, is that they had no clue where those firearms were from. He used the word unregistered, which this is open to interpretation, what that actually means. And you hear the journalist, which is unnamed, I don't know who the journalist is, asking, when you say unregistered, does that mean illegally obtained? He's like, we don't know. So did he mean unregistered as in they're non-restricted? Because in Canada, you have 3 classifications of firearm. You have your non-restricted, which, because you have a license, if you have a PAL, you're capable of buying it, and you don't need to register them with the government, because they're mostly shotguns, they're mostly hunting rifles. Then you had your restricted firearms like the AR-15, the Tavor, the handguns. Those are always registered. As soon as you buy one of them, the government automatically knows, the RCMP knows, because they need to issue you a permit or a temporary paper. It's basically paperwork to allow you to transport it, to allow it to transport from the store to your place, and you're only allowed to go to the gun range or to get it fixed and then bring it back. And then you have the prohibited ones / the banned ones that we're seeing that the AR-15, the Tavors have become. So I don't know if by unregistered he meant non-restricted, because the RCMP is not very good at using their own lingo and understanding what firearms actually are. So it's hard to tell. But from that video and from his reaction from the reporter's question, does it mean that it's illegal? The way he answered is pretty telling, in my humble opinion. And that is just my opinion. This has not been proven yet. But sounds to me like those guns were illegally obtained. They don't know where they came from. They were never seized. So remember, that means that the shooter, the 18-year-old man, not only had an expired license since 2024, but it's starting to sound like those guns weren't even part of that house's collection. So either if they belonged to the mother or the stepfather, they did not belong there. So it's starting to sound more and more like...
Isn't the story that they were seized and then given back? Have they changed that story now?
No. Okay, so you're missing the point here. No, not at all. So basically, the firearms that they seized were legally obtained. They were obtained by somebody that is... They haven't addressed who owns those firearms, who owned those firearms. So it was either the stepfather or the mother. But those guns that the RCMP had seized were legally obtained firearms, and they were seized because of the mental health issues that were happening in that household because of that guy. And all the red flags in the world were there. This is my biggest problem with this whole thing, obviously, outside of the people getting murdered, and legal gun owners are gonna get blamed for this. But my biggest problem with this whole thing is that we have a system in place that the RCMP is supposed to respect, that will prevent those type of situations from happening. If there is mental issues, you're not supposed to be able to have guns. So if you have somebody in the household, it was my understanding, and I reached out to some gun experts today to see, was I wrong about this? But it was always my interpretation that if there was mental health issues in a house where guns were present, in order to protect the public, those firearms were taken away. So that's what seemed that had happened. Then they were given back. But what the RCMP is basically saying is that those weren't even part of the guns that they seized. They have no idea where these guns came from. Yep. And that's the whole point, is that now we're not even talking about the guns that they seized. We're talking about guns that we don't know where they came from. So chances are, At least that's how they made it sound in the recording, that those guns were illegally obtained. Because clearly, if there's a handgun in there, and which I believe there were two, there were one at each site, that means you cannot obtain a handgun without registering it with the federal government under the RCMP program. That's the law.
So that makes it illegal.
Who knows about the long rifles, because we still don't know what they are, but for sure that those handguns were illegally obtained if the RCMP was not aware of those guns. So no matter how you look at it, they were guns illegally obtained. So we're not talking about legal firearm owners anymore, and it just kind of proves the point that I've been trying to make ever since this happened, that legal gun owners are not the problem. They're not the ones committing the crimes. It's criminals that commits the crime. And this is kind of the proof right there.
Yeah, I think that's, well, it's well understood by anyone who's speaking in good faith on this issue. I think the people who, if anyone says that the legal gun owners are the ones committing crimes, I mean, I think they're being disingenuous at best. I mean, there frankly isn't a lot of gun crimes in Canada. I would say, gun crime is pretty low. Most of the gun crime is by American guns. So I don't
90%.
I don't really see a point or need to crack down on legal gun owners here now in Canada, because that's just really not where the problems are coming from.
And the worst part, and I made that post the other day, there's about 2.5 million legal gun owners in Canada. If we were the problem, you would see mass shooting and murders every single day. 2.5, that's a lot of people with guns. So if we were really the problem, you would know that we were the problem. But I saw another post today, which I found to be very interesting. The guy was saying, if you want to stop crime, like if you want to remove gun crimes, take all the illegal guns and give them to legal gun owners. Your gun crimes are going to plummet. Very interesting take, because if you look at the percentage, if you look at who commits those crimes, it ain't legal gun owners. So chances are that guy was absolutely 100% right. That if you took all the illegal guns and gave them to guys like me, there would be no murders by gun anymore. So it's a great solution, by the way. I know criminals have some very cool guns, so I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm down. I'm down. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a non-issue. I don't know. You're more dialed into the gun politics than I am. Is this something that's being pushed now? Are they trying to crack down even harder on guns? Like,
it's a matter of time, man.
Yeah,
it's a matter of time.
Of course. Are they saying anything right now, or is this more just you guys are thinking it's going to happen?
If you look at history, it's always happening. So if you look at the Nova Scotia shooting back in 2020, literally within 2 weeks of the shooting, Trudeau banned 1,500 plus models and firearms. Yeah. So he did it, and that did not go through the House of Commons. That was not voted on. That was not debated. I can't remember what the name of, it's like the veto in the US.
Like executive order, you mean?
Exactly. It's like the executive order in the US. I just can't remember what it's called in Canada, but the principle's the same.
I didn't know we had one, to be honest.
Yeah, we do. Well, clearly. And he just banned 1,500 guns / models / make of firearms. So that's what they do. It's not the first time they do that. They do that every time this happens. So it's just a matter of time. And I was watching a video from our public minister, Gary Apu. He was basically answering CBC, and he was implying that we will not know what those firearms are until the RCMP concludes their investigation. So we might never know. Yeah, exactly my point, right? It's been a week and a half and we still don't know yet. They have the guns. If you show me the guns, I'll tell you what they are. It's pretty fucking simple. Just show me the guns. I'll tell you exactly what they are. It's not complicated. It's really not complicated. So there's something very fishy going on, because they always know what the type of gun is. They always know who has a license and who doesn't, because it's all government information.
Hold on. Are they saying they don't know, or just they won't release the information?
They won't release the information. My point is that they knew the day of. Like if I show up and I look at guns on the ground, I'm like, yeah, okay,
sure. Yeah,
that's what I mean. That's a Beretta, that's 9mm, that's an AR-15, that's a 223 over there. Yeah. So yeah, I could tell you. Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
So exactly, man. We have such smart commenters. That's exactly.
Oh, nice.
040 Montu is saying it's called an order in council. That is exactly correct. That is exactly right. An order in council. It doesn't sound right. It sounds, I don't know. Order in council. I'll do my best to remember, but you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's called. So thank you, because that's exactly what it is called. So I'm going to continue developing that story as more information comes out. I'm going to continue covering it, but it definitely sounds that more and more information, the more information comes out, the more it seems that the legal gun owners are definitely not the problem.
Yeah.
So that being said, before we get to the next subject, I want to remind you guys, because I talked about this yesterday, but I'm building something for the political orphans. I tried to do it in the past, did not use the proper platform, made it way too complicated, but I'm building a private community so that critical thinkers, like the people that are on this show, who reject political tribalism and want real civil discourse, so basically a continuation of the conversation that we have here, but 24/7, where I'm going to create topics every single day. I'm going to drive the conversation behind that. There's going to be exclusive content, like exclusive interviews and exclusive Q&A. So there will be a lot of exclusive content for the members. I'm working on it. Hopefully my goal is to be done by the end of the week. So next week, the new community will be available. And this is something I'm going to promote heavily on my platform. Like I've never sold anything on any of my platforms. So I'm going to sell the idea, at least, that we do need a community, because the idea is to kind of start a movement, because all I'm seeing everywhere is that a lot of people are fed up, a lot of people are frustrated, a lot of people are disappointed with the direction that Canada's taken, but there's nobody that's creating, I hate to use the word space because it reminds me of safe space, but an environment where people can have discussions like we have here, and really, instead of just complaining, find solutions. That's the whole point, is to really create a movement that's going to be talking about solutions and not just complaining. So FYI, if you guys are interested, 100%. So if you guys are interested by something like that, just drop a yes in the comment section. Even if you're listening to this not live, I'm just curious to see who's interested, because I'm really going to be working extremely, extremely hard on this. That being said, we do have a guest in, 7 minutes, give or take. So before we do, yes sir, but before we do, I wanted to quickly talk about a story, because it's easy for us to speak about all the negative stuff that we see in the news. That's normally the news cycle, right? Super negative. There's never a lot of positive in there. And I found this story. There's a story that came out from the Tumbler Ridge shooting of a professor that did something very heroic. And it's always in bad times that you find out what people are really made up. I'm trying to load it right now, and it seems like I never logged in my Epoch Times. Ah, of course. Seems that I never... Oh, that's great. Awesome. I can't even access it. Oh, that's great. I don't even know what my freaking password is for the Epoch Time on this laptop. Nice. Hold on. You know what?
What was it?
Oh, well, you know what? I'll just resume. I'll just give a resume.
Yeah.
I wanted to show the article, but basically, Chris Seeby talked about it at the vigil over the weekend, the premiere of BC. There was a teacher, at least I can give you a bit more information because I copied a bit of the article, but The name of the guy is a teacher by the name of Deeley. This is insane to me. What that guy did is absolutely insane. He locked the door as soon as he heard he heard gunshot. His wife is the principal, so he picked up the phone, called his wife to say, call the police, there's something really wrong going on. He locked the door using a chair, like he stuffed the door in place, while his son that is in his class was going to the bathroom.
Wow.
That's messed up. That whole story is, I cannot imagine me wanting to lock a door, preventing it from being opened when my son
his kid was out of the classroom.
His son was out. It was in his classroom as a student, but was going to the bathroom when he heard gunshots. So he stuffed a chair under the door so that it could not open. And yeah, the story is just very, very cool to hear guys like him. He called his wife. His wife called the police. They were there within 2 minutes, supposedly, of the call. He even grabbed some kids that were stuck in the hallway, brought them in. Like, the story is just very, very cool. So if you can check it out. The full name of the guy, I'm just looking for his name. It's a shame that the article is not loading.
His son okay?
Oh yeah. Okay. Is oh no. Mark Deeley. Mark Deeley is the name of the professor. Deeley. I just thought that the story was cool because, again, like I said, it's easy to get stuck into the negative of the media cycle, like the news cycle. But I always like those stories where somebody like him, and he said that he reacted like this because they trained. They trained those situations before, but he couldn't imagine that it would ever happen. I think it's always like that, right? You train for something, and then if it ever happens to you, you're surprised that it happens because you never expect it to happen.
It's like second nature. But yeah, I don't know, man. I if that were me, I might have been like, tell the other students, hey, lock the door behind me, and then go out in the hallway and look for my kid. But I mean, that's glad that everything worked out and the kid is okay.
Isn't it insane though? It's I'm a big, obviously we talked about this yesterday, where I would put veterans in all the schools. Like I found another article right here, but it's not the one I wanted to share. I'm a big fan of Epoch Times. Their story was really well developed. I believe this is the one here. Yup. So I'm just trying to see. Yeah, so 6 people, blah, blah, blah. Hold on. He barricaded the doors, kept kids calm, distracting them distracting them and making them feel loved. So it's just, we have to speak about those things when they come out. Because again, like I said, it's too easy to get caught in the negative. But here, Chris Eby said that teachers who did what they were told to do, what they trained and practiced to do, saved life. And in those actions, and those heroic actions, are the seeds of the recovery of this community, because of the future of Tumbler Ridge is in that school. I believe that not only should there be guards, but teachers, like in some states in the U.S., should be encouraged to have their guns, to carry, to actually train. There are certain places in the U.S. where the teachers get a raise on their salary. Yeah. Yep, they get a bonus for carrying guns, for being trained, which for sure, if I was an American citizen, no questions that I would carry. I would carry a gun 100% of the time, all the time. No questions about it. So just a cool story.
So there are, I mean, I assume, are they allowed to carry in all states, or is that a state by state thing? Like, are they allowed are teachers allowed to be armed in California? I'd be a little surprised if that were the case.
That's a misconception, because California has a lot of guns.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guns in California. Although they're very woke, there's still a lot of legal gun owners in California. Now,
but
it's a state by
regulated, right? I mean,
yeah, I would imagine so. I'm so not a fan of California that I couldn't care less. But it's one of those situations where there's a lot of different, I don't know if laws is the right word, but on the federal level, you're supposed to be able to carry everywhere because it's a right under the Constitution.
Yep.
But there are states that you can't. But I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that under Trump, he's kind of making sure that everybody can. I believe that this is something, and again, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he started trying to make sure that everybody can carry in any states if they want to, even if there's no license in that state. Like I know, like Alabama, where I spend a lot of my time, you can definitely carry guns there, and most people do. So you never know who you're messing with. On that note, guys, yeah, some people, every time I put this hat on, people are always commenting on it, and
Love the Northeast.
you know, the only reason I put it on is because of our guest today, because he commented on it last time, and he's in the back room, so I know he can hear me, but he's the only reason I put it on today, because he commented on it last time. He said he wasn't a fan, and
Sure.
I'm like a child. I'm like a child, so of course I'm gonna wear it. So the question we ask you today is Canadian beef cheaper in Vietnam than it is here in Canada? We are joined by Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, aka the food professor, to answer. Monsieur Charlebois,
Hey,
bonjour.
Sylvain.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Nico. How are you?
Yeah, how's it going, sir?
Good.
Great to have you back.
Yeah, sorry about last week. I was traveling, and today's a holiday in Halifax.
I didn't realize that either until I tried to go to the grocery store and it was closed. Like, what the hell is this? Apparently, it's family day.
There's always a reason to have a holiday, and that's why we have a
right.
productivity problem in this country.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I agree.
I mean, there are clouds in the sky, and it's time for a holiday. It's getting
Yeah,
ridiculous.
exactly right.
Yeah.
No, need a holiday.
So funny enough, I approached you last week to talk about milk dumping because of the report that came out in November last year in Ontario. But before we get to that, there's something that's kind of going viral right now, and I wanted to ask you about that specific post. And funny enough, I go on X this morning, and you actually answered table salt's post, which I'm going to bring up right now because that was one of my questions, so that was pretty funny. But table salt, I believe this was yesterday, 15th. Yeah. So table salt, if you don't know who that guy is, he's actually funny to follow. I like his posts, even if I don't agree with all of them. But he basically wrote, "Holy crap, they're selling Canadian beef in Vietnam for cheaper than we get it here in Canada. Look at this superstore in Canada selling blade steaks for $32 a kilo, while in Vietnam, 1 kilo of Canadian blade beef is 490,000 DNG. I believe they're pronounced dongs, which is great name for currency. 25.
That's a great name.
Yeah.
50,000
I want 5 million dongs, but
yeah, I know you do, but we're talking about beef here.
same thing. 489,000 dongs are $25 a kilo. What the fuck, man?
Okay.
You
Yeah,
care to address that?
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sure.
I mean, there are situations like this that makes you wonder what is going on. So it's hard to comment on on comparisons like this because we don't know for sure what the cuts are, the volume. I mean, Vietnam, by the way, we have a trade agreement with Vietnam, so all the beef can actually be traded to Vietnam tariff free. So it's not unusual to see that. I do wonder though, I mean, and I've been vocal about this for quite some time, and I think I spoke to you guys about this probably before the holidays, because I do wonder about beef prices here in Canada. Now, keep in mind, we actually have Australian beef in Canada that is cheaper here than is in Australia. So these things do happen from time to time. But when you look at Canada, say with the US, beef prices have gone up about 22%. in the last year, whereas in Canada, it's more than 30%, which is really bizarre because typically you would see both economies move up in lockstep, but that's not the case at all. I would say that beef prices are quite elevated, and there is a part of the increase that we just can't explain right now in Canada for sure. Now, in Vietnam, I mean, maybe, just maybe, these retailers are actually selling beef at cost or even at a loss to bring more customers in. So it's always difficult to really say this is really a Vietnam problem or Canada problem. But I can tell you right now, in Canada, beef packing is controlled by two companies, Cargill and GBS from Brazil. And both of them, we don't know much about profit margins other than, of course, financial results we get from the US. But I certainly, if I were the government of Canada, I would do two things. One, I would investigate into beef packing in Canada. And two, like the US is doing exactly that because they have a problem. And two, there is a committee in Ottawa that looks into beef imports into Canada, and they haven't met since 2015 to allow more beef into Canada. So I would do those two things.
And I can tell we buy.
Go ahead.
We do buy Australia, especially when it comes to. My wife buys a lot. Is it lamb? Yeah, I believe it's lamb from Australia because their quality control is better. Their quality is good. Well. Exactly. Oh, if you buy from New Zealand, it's all there's no antibiotic, there's no steroids, and normally they are grass fed. I know when I took protein shakes years and years ago, I don't drink that crap anymore, but I used to. I only bought from New Zealand because of their quality control is better than ours. But even the Australia one, it is cheaper. Like we buy at Costco, and the Australian lamb is cheaper than we have here. And I also have a local butcher that I will go to on cheat nights sometimes to get an actual really nice piece of meat. And even her was telling me that her production is so low in Canada that she has problems getting her hands on lamb. It's so expensive. Like she said, it basically tripled just the lamb price within a year or two. That it's absolutely insane how much it costs her because there's no production in Canada. And that's what I wanted to ask you, because I heard some rumors right now that if you look at beef, for example, one of the reasons it's so expensive is we have less cattle right now in 2026 than we did in the 80s and the 90s, yet we're probably 25% more in population, but we produce less beef. Is that true?
It is true. I think Rob had a question, though. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah. So, Savannah, I was going to ask you about these meat packers. So one is Cargill, and the other is the one from Australia.
GBS.
What's your opinion? Yeah. So, what's your opinion on the fact that we don't have any of Canadian companies in charge of our beef supply? That seems pretty. Are they? Do we have? Does that mean we don't have control over our beef supply chain, or is this normal? Is this part? You're the expert in this industry. Is this normal? Is this par for the course, or is this a problem? Because it sounds to me offhand like a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I do think that beef packing is a problem. Back in 2003 with mad cow, I mean, mad cow was devastating for the beef industry in Canada. Many cattle ranchers wanted to start a slaughtering plant, and only to realize that regulations are so difficult, so challenging that it's practically impossible to start a federally licensed, because you have provincially licensed plants, and that's much easier to start, but you can't sell outside your province. So if you want to sell outside your province, you need a federal license, and that can cost you millions and millions of dollars. I would say that to build a decent beef packing plant, say out west or in Ontario or in Quebec, you would probably need around $400 to $500 million. But we were ready to do that with EVs and electric cars. And we were willing to spend like almost $50 billion. And I was going, you can build like dozens of beef packing plants with that money. So absolutely, you're right, Rob. There is this. I wouldn't say control. I would say, lack of capacity, lack of competition in beef packing, and they're controlling the market very well. Basically, if you look at Canada and you look at individuals, like people controlling the beef economy in Canada, I would probably say 5 to 6 people, humans, control the beef market in Canada.
What?
I believe it.
That's an insane statement.
That's the reality, and so that's why we have a problem. I know a lot of people out there are saying, "Well, grocers are controlling the market." Well, you can start a grocery chain right now. There's nothing that prevents you from doing that. In fact, Marie-Pierre Breton from Quebec, I don't know if you guys are aware of Liquidation Marie. She started to sell food in her basement in 2013, and she's about to open up her 10th store. She has 600 employees now.
What a story.
Okay? But beef packing is very different. You need connections, you need good friends, you need supply, and of course you need the cooperation of the CFIA as well. So it's much more complicated.
It's a shame because there's some great meat packing plants, or how could I say it, like homegrown meat and packing right out of Ontario. Their prices are awesome. They deliver everywhere in Ontario, but because I'm in Quebec, they won't cross the border.
They won't. That's
I would have to drive up to Ontario, meet them there, and then.
But imagine,
bring it to Montreal.
Gentlemen, if you actually allow, say, meat packers in Ontario to deliver in Quebec, you increase competition overnight,
100%.
which would actually push prices lower. Just doing that, you would actually help a lot of Canadians.
Because their prices are way better, and it's better cuts of meats. Plus, like the one that we were looking at, you can do a virtual tour. They will take a cell phone as they have you on the phone and just walk around their farm so that you can see. 100%. Yeah, no. They call it, I don't remember, farm to table, I think is the term that they use. That's very popular now. But you get to know who the people are. You get to know who owns the farm. You get to know.
So you're buying directly from the farmer. I think a lot of people love that.
Oh yeah.
And it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper, but you need to buy a lot. And now they have plans. Sure. They can tell you, this is how much meat you're going to eat in a year. No problem. Those are all the cuts. We're going to make you a monthly payment. You don't have to pay all up front. Like, it's very, very smart what they're doing. But like you said, Sylvain, really there has to be a control somewhere. This is done on purpose. I don't believe in coincidences. But I thought that Canadians didn't believe in monopoly. I thought that was not a good thing, right?
Well, actually, Canadians don't mind monopolies until pricing becomes a problem.
Which is what we're seeing right now.
It often becomes a problem. And so that's why, because with monopolies or state control or state protected monopolies, you bring comfort. And Canadians love to be comfortable. And so we're paying for that comfort. And so we don't have people daring, taking risks, starting companies as much as we need to, especially in the food business, and we're paying for it now.
So how do you explain that we have less cattle now than we did in the 80s and the 90s, yet our population's about 25% bigger? I believe the numbers were around the 30 million, and now we're about 41. So how do you explain that?
Actually, the same scenario happened in 2014. There was a huge drought. Feed costs went up. Cattle ranchers sold off their herd, and actually our inventories got depleted, both sides of the border, U.S. and Canada. But the herd got rebuilt very quickly within 6 months. So you probably don't remember this, but beef prices did skyrocket in 2014, but they went back down again. This time around, it's not happening yet for a couple of reasons. One, I think, so investors, because you need to invest, you need to put a lot of cash to rebuild a herd. We're talking millions of dollars. It's a cash sector. It's a cash-driven sector. And so farmers need to feel confident that the economy is going to be there in 2 years from now, because it takes 2 years to actually get a beef ready for market. You need to feel confident about the market 2 years from now. But with the Trump regime, everything's uncertain. And so that's why a lot of beef, that's why you're not seeing that in pork. You're not seeing it in chicken. But in beef, because the cycle is so long, they don't want to take risks. That's one thing. But secondly, especially in the U.S., consumers are still buying this stuff. They love beef, and they don't mind paying more for beef. Let me tell you, I know a lot of people are posting expensive beef online, and they're saying that price is outrageous. But if beef is sold at that price, it means someone's buying. Let's be honest here. Someone is buying. Both sides of the border.
100%. That there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But that
so the economy is doing very well in the U.S. And of course, a lot of mainstream media hates to say that Trump is actually.
It's crazy. That's true, eh? That is just not part of the media narrative. You have to go and find
tomorrow,
that yourself, or get it from alternative news sources.
Tomorrow,
like this show.
We're going to actually get new numbers, new inflation numbers coming from Statistics Canada. Last week, we learned that the food inflation rate in the U.S. is at 2.9% and dropping. It's dropping despite a tariff-happy president. Can you imagine? Here, we're at 6.2, and mark my words, tomorrow, I think it's going to go up again.
The reports I've seen for the numbers tomorrow are 7%. This is what I've been hearing. So it went from 6.2 in December, and now January is 7%. That is almost 1% increase over 1 month. Yeah. What? How
that is this 4%, almost 4% more than the US. Now, mind you, last year we had the GST holiday, so it skews the number a little bit. But if you take out the GST holiday, if tomorrow we fall at 7%, we're actually going to make some calculation tomorrow when numbers come out. But my guess, minus the GST holiday, we would probably be at 5.2, 5.3, which would still be the highest food inflation rate amongst G7 countries.
All I could find when it comes to that is because of money printing that they did during COVID. This is one of the biggest flaws that they're seeing. They printed so much money. But that's hold on. Hold on.
Done that,
no, but not to the point that we did. Most Western countries didn't have a program like CERB. No. CERB is what cost us a bunch of money, Rob. You literally had people sitting at home doing nothing, getting paid by the government.
America had their own program.
No, but hold on. The point I'm trying to make here is, how do you explain this? Because let's say that Rob is right. Let's assume, play devil's advocate, that what he said is true. Why is it that we're twice as high in food inflation than the US and 3 times what you're seeing in Europe? And let's say that we all did the same thing. How can you explain the situation in which Canada is in? And now you're saying that the US is going down and Canada is going up. At least that's what I've seen. How do you explain this if it's not? Tell me, how did this happen?
So first of all, our food inflation problem really started 18 years ago with the financial crisis. In 2008, that's when you start seeing that decoupling between the cost of living.
All the QE, the quantitative easing programs all across the West really took off at that time as well.
Good memory. Absolutely. So you have the cost of living, and then you start to see food inflation go up due to quantitative easing. And of course, Nico is actually talking about COVID and CERB and all that. That's quantitative easing as well.
Absolutely would have. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but we're repeating the same mistake again with the GST credit, $14 billion. So it's not as much as CERB, of course, and what happened in 2008, but it is still more money we do not have poured into the economy, and people will be spending it on, which will fuel inflation again. Another policy mistake that is actually make the lives of many Canadians all Canadians worse. And that's really something. Most of the problems we have, we don't see that it's impacting food inflation. For example, the carbon tax. In less than 2 months, the carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax, is going to go up to $110 a metric ton. We're not talking about it. We don't see it, but talk to farmers, talk to processors. They're all paying for that. Not in the US, they're not paying for that carbon tax. So we have packaging taxes, the plastic tax. Also, we have poor logistics in Canada. We haven't invested in infrastructure. Our ports are terrible. Our roads are terrible. Our railways are also terrible. And of course,
we've got rainbow crosswalks everywhere. We've got them, and we've got rainbow crosswalks in every small town. So I mean, you gotta think of that too.
That's true. That's very efficient. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but at least if we could see,
if it comes at the expense of real infrastructure improvement, I think there's an issue with it.
Exactly. And the last thing I think that is really that is really a problem is the fact that we have a lot of small companies that don't have options. So, for example, if you have, say, company A that makes soup in Ontario, and a company buys ingredient A from the United States, they single source most of the time because they're too small. And if that ingredient A goes up in price by 30%, it doesn't have an option. It has to pay 30% more and rises prices. In the US, they can eat up tariffs, pivot, do all sorts of things because they're bigger and larger. And so in Canada, scaling up companies is very difficult because of bureaucracy, because of the lack of capital. If you're growing a business, let's say you have 100 employees and you want to go up to 250, 300, you want to increase your sales to up to 100 million, 200 million to decrease the cost per unit. There's no capital in Canada. You have to go to the US. That's a big problem that we have.
So if it was up to you, if you were running the show in Canada and your main objective was to make food affordable again, see, you can use that slogan if you want. Make food affordable again. I just made it up. That's actually not bad. You can take it. I just made it up, but you can take it. So what would you do as the food professor if your job would be to make food affordable again in Canada? What would you do?
The MAFA movement.
MAFA. Yeah, I was trying to think of how that would look. How would that
well, first of all, I mean, to me, an automatic would be to make sure that we do not tax food from farm to plate ever. So GST gone. Carbon tax, gone. Tax on plastic, gone. I would protect the food supply chain. I would also make the food supply chain free of labor disputes and declare it as an essential service. I got to tell you, farmers out west hate when there's a lockout, a strike affecting railways. It costs them a lot of money, and we all pay for that. I would invest in more infrastructure. And lastly, of course, when it comes to interprovincial trade barriers, I would get rid of all interprovincial trade barriers. I would actually grant provincial licensed facilities the opportunity to export outside the province, not outside the country, but outside the province. And the sweet one is supply management. I would absolutely The one thing I would do with supply management, very simple. I would not eliminate the quota system. I would do one thing, harmonize the allocation of quotas nationally. Why? Because you allow money to reward efficiency. You allow money to reward productivity, and all the money that is in Quebec right now or in the Atlantic where I am right now would actually flow west, where farms are much more productive.
So it seems to me, Sylvain, like these are all pretty common sense solutions, right? It seems kind of obvious. And to me, they seem so simple. Now, aren't you the kind of people, like as your job, like you inform or consult government on these things, right? You advise them on these things. So where's the disconnect? Are you holding like unorthodox views in your field, or are these consensus views? Because I'm thinking, okay, this all sounds common sense. So if Sylvain and the people advising government are saying these things, why is this not getting up there? Where's the bottleneck? Where's it starts as common sense? How does common sense policy not get passed?
Well, so, I mean, it's a great question. On Thursday, one of the reasons I couldn't actually make it to your show last week is I was actually at Senate. I was testifying before the Senate of Canada. If you go on my X account, you'll actually see parts of my testimony saying exactly.
You're the guy who they listen to.
Well, they listen, but they understand that there are politics at play here. I mean, you have to appreciate the fact that we have Parliament and we have MPs from Quebec, MPs from Ontario, and they're being told by really powerful lobby groups not to touch certain things. So here I am as an academic. I don't really represent anybody. I'm not in conflict. Nobody's paying me. I'm just saying what's in the best interest of the country. My job is to tell senators, elected officials, what they should be doing, but it's up to them. Because if they actually act on everything I just said, they will pay a political price, and not everyone is willing to do that.
So, considering what you said, considering the 5 things you would do in order to kind of reduce the price of food in Canada, there's one thing that we can't really change, and it's inflation. Once the damage is done, it's done. You can try to reduce inflation, but the devaluation of your money has already happened. So you can only deal with the consequences of this. So as much as what you're saying would bring the cost down, we're still kind of screwed from all the damage that's been done over the past decade. So is there something that we can actually do to deal with inflation? Because from what I understand about the way money printing works, once it's done, it's done. You can go back to 2%, but the 7% hike is still going to be there. It's just you're not going to be talking about it, but it's going to be part of the new cost.
Yeah. What I explained to senators last week in Ottawa was very simple. I mean, food inflation is not desirable, or outrageous food inflation beyond, I'd say, 2.5%. Your sweet spot is 1.5, 2.5%. I think most economists understand that inflation is actually important to grow your economy. If you want wealth creation, you have to have inflation, controlled inflation. The biggest problem, well, yeah, exactly. So the worst problem to face is exactly the problem we're facing right now, is uncontrolled inflation and price volatility. That's really the worst thing. And so Trudeau, in his desperation last year, because I actually testified before Senate last year with David Dodge, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, we both went to Ottawa to argue that GSLA was the bad idea. It's a bad idea. Why? Because it opens up the door to opportunistic pricing. As soon as you start playing around with market conditions, you're increasing costs, because companies have to regulate their computers, readjust for 2 months. It brings more costs, and so they have to cover their costs. And we're paying for it right now. A year later, now we're actually measuring the impact of really bad policy implemented by a desperate former prime minister that was trying to increase the love that he was getting from Canadians in December of 2024, and he resigned a few weeks later. Those are the goofy decisions we've seen over and over and over again, and that needs to stop. If you stop that silliness, then you'll be able to control food inflation way more. But right now, food inflation is being politicized, and I thought that Prime Minister Carney was not from that registry. I thought that Prime Minister Carney was not like former Prime Minister Trudeau, but the last few weeks, it was very disappointing to see him in a grocery store, just like former Prime Minister Trudeau, basically advocating for grocery benefits. He used the word grocery benefits, changed the name, a new slogan, $14 billion we don't have, and that will make our lives, all of our lives, worse. Why? Because he's prepping probably for a spring election. Don't politicize food inflation, or else you get us all in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out that Mark Carney was the economic advisor to Trudeau since 2020, 2021. So he was behind Trudeau's decisions.
His fingerprints will be all over that. Yeah.
So I can't prove it, but what Mark Carney did a couple of weeks ago, what you're talking about, the grocery benefit, Trudeau did it probably because of his recommendation. So I understand what you're saying. It's
a bit frustrating because it's like having I don't know if you have children. We have 4 children. I mean, it's like telling your child that you love, well, don't touch the hot stove, and or don't eat candy, or else it's going to be bad for you.
Don't eat supper candy before supper or something like that.
Exactly.
And you have to be the bad guy once in a while.
So right now we're seeing a government in Ottawa just telling people what they want to hear without really telling them the consequences of some of those decisions. And I can tell you, a year later, when I'm looking at the data coming out of Statistics Canada, I see exactly what I was expecting a year ago when I was testifying in Ottawa.
Basically, they're giving us all candy before bed or before supper time, right? They're giving us exactly what we want.
But you're going to have to pay for your dentist.
Yeah, exactly. You got to pay for your own dentist.
And the price of the dentist is going to be 300% more expensive.
Yeah. But Ottawa's going to be there to pay the bill. No problem. Even though it's more expensive, Ottawa will be there for you.
Constant cycle. So I'm curious, as I listen to, you've been on the show enough that I get a sense of, I think, some of your politics, and certainly just some of the things you say from your job. I know that your job is apolitical.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Rob, I mean, I'm an academic, so it's hard to criticize the opposition when the opposition hasn't been in power for 10 years. So my job is to criticize decisions made by the government. So people will say I'm anti-liberal. I'm not anti-liberal. My job is to criticize policy. If Conservative would be in power, my job would be to criticize policy no matter what.
Yeah, and it's just I can tell that you don't bring your politics to your work at all, but it strikes me as we talk that a lot of the things you say that I know are not political to you, they're just coming out of the data, sound very right-wing in the current environment, right? When you're talking about, being against the carbon tax or being critical of a lot of these social safety net giveaways and stuff like that. It all sounds very right-wing coded. And I know it's not to you. I know it's just that's what
from an academic, I would say it's very uncommon. And it makes me sad, but academics tend not to see business in a positive light. And
yes.
I think our businesses in Canada are our beacon of hope for wealth creation. Our beacon of hope. So my job at the end of the day, I try my best to create conditions which will allow our businesses to prosper. That's the most important thing.
Because that was where my question was going. It was just like, how are your colleagues deal with this? Like when you're, if you're saying something that it is not to you political at all, it's just where the data leaves, but it sounds like a right-wing talking point. What's that like almost on a personal level? It's got to be difficult in academia, who is famous.
Absolutely. I mean, 95% of my colleagues don't think like me. And so I've had really, I've been at this for 25 years, so I'm accustomed to it, but it's really, I'm very concerned about academia because most academics aren't necessarily pro-business. They don't understand where their salaries are coming from.
Their comfortable lives come from.
They're coming from taxpayers who are working very hard every single day. They come from businesses who are actually providing great services and great products to the public, to different markets around the world. We trade with the rest of the world. I mean, 60% of everything we own in Canada is due to, to Americans and our trading partners from around the world. I think a lot of academics actually have forgotten about that. And so my job is to remind them of that, and we need to be careful as much as possible.
I don't think they have forgotten. They just don't care. Because if they really care, because if you look at the numbers don't lie. I'm not a conservative because I'm a conservative. I'm considered a conservative because I looked at facts, and most of the left-leaning individuals would rather deal with their emotions, how they feel about something. But if you look at the facts, because I can tell you,
if my colleagues don't care, it means that they don't mind teaching in a hut in the winter.
but they don't think it's going to happen. But they don't think it's going to happen to them. That's the problem that we're facing. People see what's going on, food inflation, for example, but a lot of Canadians have not yet realized what it actually means. Because we're still comfortable enough. Most people can still afford food, even though they might not be able to afford a lot more. But once they're going to make their first trip to the food bank, and if you look at the numbers, the people that are at the food banks are not people that are unemployed. The people that are at the food banks are 100% those people that 10 years ago could afford their lives, their normal life, but now can't. So it's not because they're not working.
Nico, some people are now going to the food bank and they are former donors.
I believe
okay?
it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Because I work with Food Banks Canada. They do a wonderful job. My wife and I, we give back to food banks all the time. And let me tell you, the data that's coming out of that network is just terrible. And what I'm concerned about is that right now, a lot of Canadians think that the economy is doing great. We're doing awesome. We're doing much better than the Americans. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Look at the data.
Yeah, but it's impossible that the U.S. is doing well because they're being ran by Donald Trump. That's how we are in Canada, right?
Narrative, right?
And I think what we have in common, gentlemen, is the fact that there's the person and there's the position and the economy. And I've seen you guys talk from time to time, and you're incredibly rational. You don't really allow your emotions to get in the way. You just look at the facts, and that's something that more and more people aren't doing, unfortunately.
It's more right for me, but because Rob, if you listen to him, he almost
give it up now.
All the way starts his sentences by I feel, I feel very liberal talk, but I appreciate
like
that.
I'm right a lot more often.
Just a little comment, Nico. You should actually count the number of times you say every night, "Don't quote me on this." Don't quote me on this.
Don't quote me.
You should call your podcast. Don't quote me on this.
Don't quote me on this. That'd be good, actually. That's a good name. So make food affordable again, and don't quote me podcast. We try.
Did you have any inspirational slogans for that? Did you have any source material, or did you just come up completely on your own, completely out of the blue?
Out of the blue, absolutely. It's just the inspiration in the moment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
this is live, so hey.
Well,
we love having
Sylvain,
you on there, Sylvain.
Yep, 100%. Thank you for being here. We're gonna have
My
to
pleasure,
have you
guys,
back.
and keep up the good work.
Absolutely, but I'm gonna reach out again once we see those numbers, because I didn't realize the numbers were coming tomorrow. So
it's tomorrow morning, 8:30 Eastern.
I appreciate your time, Sylvain. Thanks again for joining us.
Take care.
Have a great
bye.
Great night. We'll see you later.
Well, there you have it, guys. I just want to address a question from was it Sheridan that was saying it? I should have saved it. Yeah, right here. So Sheridan Forbes is saying, Nico, can you let the professor know you don't need inflation for real growth? Increasing the money supply leads to inflation, not real growth. Real growth leads to deflation. So, one of the things I just want to approach on this one is the reason I did not ask him is not because I don't agree with you, because I agree with you 1,000%. If you understand how money works, our money system is flawed. And the flaw being that the governments do not print their own money. A third party prints the money, and every single dollar that it's ever printed is printed at an interest. So it is impossible for you to repay the money. That's the flaw of the system. So inflation is part of our money system right now. It's impossible not to have some type of inflation. The only way to fight that inflation is if the government, like, remember the greenbacks, like they still call the American money like that, the greenbacks sometimes. But if you look about 120, 130 years ago, the greenbacks were printed by the US and they just printed, there was just enough money in the circulation, sorry, for trade. So people could buy services, they could buy product, but they never printed more. And then they started passing the Federal Reserve Acts at the beginning of the 20th century, which give control of their money printing to outside forces. Just look Money Masters. If you've never watched Money Masters, a documentary from the 90s, dry as hell, but the reporter that made it, the journalist, is insane. He talks to some of the smartest people on the planet. He talks to people that are world renowned to explain what it is, and he explains the whole history of money, how it works, and inflation is built in. But you need to understand, I don't know that is something that Sylvain is in. And the reason I didn't ask your question, again, it's not because I don't agree with you. It's because, unfortunately, it's not part of the conversation that we're having with him.
It's not really.
So that if he was an economist and an economist would have said that on the show, I would have corrected him and called him out. But that was not the point of the conversation, if that makes sense.
Your theory about it is just opinion as well, right? That's not proof. It's not proven or anything. It's a debate.
This is this is not a debate. What I'm talking about to you is not a debate. That's a fact.
Yeah, it is.
No,
it's not. No, it's not.
We don't print our own money. Canada does.
This whole discussion is very convoluted. I think a lot of people don't really understand it. I don't think anyone really understands it. I don't think I understand it. But when I hear, I know the theories you're talking about, but there's a lot of holes in it. There's a ton of them.
No, but that's a fact. The Federal Reserve in the U.S. does not belong to the U.S. They own 10% of the Federal Reserve. The rest belongs to third parties that are never named.
But when someone says something like that, it doesn't belong to the U.S., in what way does that even make sense? The U.S. government has control over everything that happens.
They do not. No, they do not. There's about, last time I checked, there was about 3 or 4 countries in the world that did not have a Federal Reserve ruling over their money supply. And this is a world phenomenon. It is not part of the U.S. government. It is called the Federal Reserve. Brother, you have a lot of learning to do on the way money is ran.
I've heard all the arguments. They're just not persuasive, right?
It doesn't matter that they're persuasive. Go read the reserve. No, but it's not an opinion. Go read the Federal Reserve Act.
The Federal Reserve is controlled by the U.S. government.
10% of it belongs to the government. Just go read the Federal Reserve Act. It's in there. There's a reason why I read the acts, bro.
My point is this is opinion as well, just like his opinion. It's an opinion. I don't think anybody knows what causes actual inflation. These things are so complicated. I don't think there's any human being that actually understands it.
Of course. I just told you what it was. I don't really care that you agree with it or not. I've researched this for 2 decades now. Inflation is caused because we do not control our money supply. The greenbacks being the last time, at least in the U.S. history, that they did control, and there was no inflation because they controlled it based on the need of the people. So there was no inflation because somebody was in power for the good of the people. This is the problem that we're seeing now. Every single dollar is printed at interest. And that's not opinion, that's a fact. We do not control our money supply.
But inflation existed long before the U.S. got off the. It's not as simple as saying the gold standard changed everything, right? Certainly it has it's a factor, but there was inflation.
But the gold standard, but the gold standard is something completely different. It doesn't. The gold standard doesn't matter anymore because we have fiat money. Most of the money is not backed by anything anymore, so it doesn't matter. The gold standard is something complete.
By the trust of the government, right? That's the whole point of it.
Right now, that's all. Our money's worth nothing outside that we trust it. We just agree as a society that
trust too. You can't eat gold; it doesn't give you shelter. You just trust that someone else will accept it as money. That's just how money works.
Well, not really, because gold actually has real life applications. We still need gold for a lot of the technology that we're developing. So it has an actual value. Our fiat money is not even worth the paper it's printed on. We just agree as nations to say that it's worth something.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know that you're saying we're not even necessarily saying a different thing. You're saying it's based on nothing but trust that someone else will accept it. And I'm agreeing with that. I'm just saying that is something that means something.
But that's not the
Whatever
point.
reason, it works in the human psyche. And I would say to anyone who says it doesn't mean anything, I would say, okay, burn your $100 bills in your pocket, and no one will do it because they know that it's valuable somewhere else. That's all.
But that's not
is.
But that has nothing to do with what I was talking about. Those are two completely different things that have nothing. They're related because they're part of our money system, obviously, but they're not. The fact that we have fiat money has nothing to do with our inflation, is what I'm saying. They're not related outside of they're both money talks. But one, like the inflation, has nothing to do that it's fiat or not, even if it was backed by gold, because you still had inflation, and until somewhat recently, I think it's 50 years ago, the money in the US, you could still exchange it. I'm not going to say it just because Sylvain said it.
70s, I think.
It's around John F. Kennedy. The conspiracy theorists are saying that that's why he really got shot, is because he wanted to move away from the Federal Act. He wanted to remove the Federal Reserve Act. And the people that are behind it said, yeah, no, not going to happen. That's a conspiracy theory, but that's what a lot of people believe why JFK was killed. But all I was trying to say is the two things are not, they're related, as in we're talking about the money supply, we're talking about money. But inflation could happen even if it's backed by gold. It has nothing to do with it. Backed by gold just means that you can literally exchange your money for gold, or you kind of have proof that your economy has something. It's more than just trust. You have actual something solid behind it.
You print money, and your underlying economy does not grow in conjunction, right? That's when you get inflation. That's why we've been printing too much money.
But it's more than that. Just the fact that you're printing money will cause inflation. That's why even the economists are going to tell you, and even that's what Sylvain was saying. They're looking at like 1.5% to 2. I think Bank of Canada says that 2.2 is something along the lines of 2.2. You're still okay, but if your inflation keeps on creeping up, like on top of that, you're looking at a recession. So one causes the other, but there's no way to. You don't see a lot of contraction when it comes to our money supply. It's very rare that it happens. And if you look at history, when they contract money, the economy collapses because they're calling out debt. That's the problem. That's either way. We can stop the conversation there because this is a conversation that we can talk about for
a long time. We'll pick it up some other time though. It's an interesting discussion for sure.
I'd like to have an economist come on the show. I just never thought about it now. I'm going to keep a mental note. I'll keep a mental note to try to find someone to come on the show to speak about this.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, guys. So we are going to put a pin in there a little bit longer than normal, but well, what can you say when you're in a good, when you're in the zone there, when you're having a good conversation, you want to keep it going. Guys, if you are tuning in today for the first time and you want to support the show, please consider becoming a member. You can do that through YouTube for the low price of $2.99 per month. You can also buy us a coffee, which you will see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, the QR code for that. And of course, you can also just keep coming back. That's another way to support the show. Keep coming back. Throw those comments out there. As you can see, the audience is based on audience engagement and participation, and we regularly have high quality guests like you saw today with Dr. Sylvain. He's a regular friend of the show, and we'll regularly have guests like that as well. Other than that, folks, actually, just before I go, this is a good shirt. And Forbes says invite Peter Schiff, he'll do it. I mean, he's a well-known.
I'm ahead of you. I copied it. I'm just gonna put it. I'm gonna send myself an email so that I can look.
That'd be great. That'd be great. That'd be a great guest to have on. All right, guys.
I didn't recognize the name, but I googled the face, and I'm like, that guy's awesome. I know exactly who that guy is. Yeah, I'll reach out to him. I have nothing to lose. Yeah, I have nothing to lose.
All right, folks. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll catch you tomorrow, the Tuesday night show.
Peace.